what you're looking at here is the Lion of Lucerne, a sculpture by Bertel Thorvaldsen. He's a Danish sculptor. It is a sculpture of the lion carved into limestone rock face. Originally, it was meant to be a monument to the Swiss Guard, who, remember, were mercenaries. These particular Swiss Guards had died defending Louis XVI. And right away, it became kind of a national symbol for the Swiss in general. Now, what we're looking at might seem unusual to you, but it's really a common use of public sculpture. It's just in kind of an uncommon media and also allegory. So let's start. The composition is centered, but it's asymmetrical. And what I mean by centered is that you don't have the lion off on one side of the whole composition. So we can talk about it being centered without meaning that it's symmetrical. So here you've got that combination. It's centered but asymmetrical, and that's really nice here because that makes it more natural, being asymmetrical, and it suits, of course, the sculpture itself. The line is descriptive and expressive. Now, I know I've got you used to thinking of those two as separate, but they can happen a lot, that they're both descriptive and expressive. The description here is, of course, the line going along the back of the lion, the lines in the face being descriptive, but it's also expressive in this directional line that is so horizontal. What we're looking at is a dying lion, and so we understand that directional line to mean neutrality and even death. Now, let's look at space. And here we can look at actual space. It's a great sculpture. How is that line so emphatic that I talked about, that line going around the back of the lion itself? Because it's a natural cave that he's got sculpted out. That means that it's dark in the back of the cave, and that's what emphasizes the line that we can see. Now, I just mentioned it's a natural cave, but it's also sculpted. It's kind of a natural take on what we usually have in sculpture that we call a niche. Now, I'm just showing you what this would be. This is Donatello's St. George, and we've already seen this as an example of the sculpture of St. George being in the round, and also relief sculpture below. And we looked at that in our lecture on sculpture. But here note where those two sculptures reside. They are part of a niche that was also designed by Donatello. And he designed this as a kind of holding space. This is quite common in sculpture, especially in times of the Renaissance. And so what Thorvaldsen is doing is giving us that idea of a niche, but it's actually a carved cave. Now, if the niche was shallower, you'd have more light in the background. So he had to think about all that as he was sculpting this huge, not natural cave. And finally, there are no passages of time or motion here, and that's deliberate. Time is suspended. It's supposed to be very still and calm so that we focus on the lion himself. Now, the lion is a traditional symbol for bravery, and here we have him dying very stoically and very bravely. The shields are right behind his huge head, and if you look carefully, you'll see that the spear has gone through his body. The tip of it, broken off, is sticking through his ribs that we can see. And so he dies stoically and actually nobly. Now, our point of view here is very controlled. You can see from this particular image that it's behind water, so we can only see it from certain angles and from below. So we are intended to literally look up to this dying hero. And always with sculpture, look at the texture. We have here a difference in texture that's quite striking between the body and the fur versus the mane. You have a thinner and more even texture to the fur, which really points up that curly mane that he has. And this, in turn, puts an emphasis on the lion's face, which is also the focal point. Now let's look at gaze here. It's actually deflected. It looks down. So that makes a lion, which could be very differently interpreted, absolutely non-confrontational. In turn, it, I think, humanizes the lion's face. We can read emotion and pain on his face. We have sympathy for this animal. In semiotic terms, he would be a symbol. And I already called it that when I said it was a symbol of bravery. But humanizing the lion, making it more human, morphs it just a little more towards being an icon, so that we see him as the animal, as the lion himself. At the same time, we're seeing him as a symbol. So this is a huge, natural, heroic, yet dignified symbol of the calm and loyal courage of all the Swiss.
How to look at and understand great art. Order it now from the Great Courses.